560 The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560 The Answer.
Dan and Amy, we're still getting inundated with our responses to what posters did you have in your room in honor of Raquel Welch. Is it fuzzy or fussy britches? I thought it was fuzzy, but I guess it could be fussy britches, too. I didn't think about the pronunciation of the word in Shawshank. Anyway, I digress.
Jane Kennedy. There's,
Sophia Loren.
Oh, yeah.
I got a Sophia Loren. I got a Bridget Bardot. I got a Stephanie Powers. Heart to heart.
Sylvester Stallone. That's another text message I got.
No, female text message. How about this? Jose Cardinal from the 69 Cubs. Somebody emailed in. Wow. That's a deep dig. Patty McGuire Connors. Jimmy Connors' wife, who apparently was a playmate before Pam a big popular playmate before Pam Anderson. I didn't know that. Let's see.
Sybil Shepherd. That's another one. Yeah. Huey Lewis. Somebody said Dan and Amy had a Huey Lewis poster for years. Rest in peace.
Amish texter Kelly McGillis from Witness, of course. Yeah, Amish.
Dan and Amy, you all forgot the best pinup poster ever. Madeleine Albright.
Yeah, stunning. I'm surprised nobody mentioned Michelle Obama.
Easy. Yeah.
Somebody also said Amy Jacobson.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, that was Craig Stevick.
Oh, no, yeah, I did 2 Women of Iowa calendars. Okay,
I know. So you could be in somebody's room, or
I was
now in their
at
closet.
University of Iowa.
Yeah.
Now in the garbage in a landfill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they recycled it. I mean, come on, do your part for the planet.
Let's see, what else do you have? Oh, Jenny McCarthy.
Oh yeah. She still looks great too.
Yeah, she was on a relatively recent episode of Bar Rescue, I saw, with John Taffer. Oh. Because she's got this vodka product, apparently. Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyway.
They live in St. Charles.
All right. Well, we'll continue to, take your tributes to those you posterized in your childhood. But we have to get to some serious business as well. Yes. Talk public safety in Chicago with just 12 days before the primary election. To help us with that, pleased to be joined by our friend John Garrido. He's a now recently retired Chicago Police Lieutenant. Also, I want to give profile here because speaking of making dreams come true, he and his wife also run the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation on the Northwest Side, yep. GarridoStrayRescue.org, and that's where I got Hayek, my dog.
I know.
Yeah. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. And quick shout out to the Chicago police officers in the 16th District, actually all over the city, and my retired buddy, Lieutenant Kevin Hannigan.
All right. Who did you have, or do you still have on your wall posterized?
I had Farrah Fawcett, and then also Olivia Newton-John as Sandy, the
Sure.
weather Sandy, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
Yeah, those were mine too. I actually even traded. I had trading cards. I still have them. And my wife Anna put them in a book for me, so I have all the Charlie's Angels trading cards.
Well, it's very nice of your wife to do that for you. Yeah.
I know. I had them all. I just had them all in a stack, and then so she did put it together and gave it to me as a gift. She found them.
I had no idea they had trading cards.
Mm-hmm.
They did. Yeah. We were always trading the 2 best ones were Farrah Fawcett and Jacqueline Smith.
Yeah. Sure. I always wanted to be Charlie.
As far as getting other cards.
Yeah, I always wanted to be Charlie, not because I would have models work for me, but I just figured he was living a lavish lifestyle. That was my takeaway from that show. All right, John. Mayor Lightfoot, she's still the mayor of the city of Chicago, at least for a couple more months. She says she's been saying in these insufferable candidate forums that are mostly without point. She's been saying that she has put more police on the street, so what these other candidates are proposing, she's already doing, so there's nothing more to do.
Yeah, well, that's just one of the many lies that she continues to throw at us on her campaign trail. We've got about, I think we figured out there was 4,000 officers are actually in units and actually not on patrol. So the patrol division is the backbone of the police department. Those are the officers that are on the front line. They're out there handling the 911 calls. They're in uniform and marked cars. That's our visible deterrent to crime. So that's the unit that you want to have the most amount of officers on, so that they can support each other and make sure that we've got great response times for our community and backup for our officers as they're handling jobs and doing street stops. But what this administration has done is their friends and family program is alive and well, and they just keep packing these units with officers, which is important. But we've got 275 officers down at the Chicago Police Academy. We've got several hundred over in the narcotics division. We've got on Mayor Lightfoot's detail, her protection detail, which is a little more than 4 times the amount that Rahm and Daley had. She's got over 110 police officers working in her protection detail. So these are officers where these are supposed to be support units. I don't know about hers, but the rest of them are support units for the patrol division. So when we have an overall reduction in manpower, which is happening nationwide, but especially here in Chicago, when you have an overall reduction in manpower, you need to thin out those units and beef up the patrol division. And we've got a superintendent that probably shouldn't have been promoted past the rank of patrolman, who has no idea what he's doing and refuses to do that. So it makes it unsafe for our officers. It's unsafe for our community. And I've called it a train wreck. This entire administration has been nothing but a train wreck.
And someone that's, up there, he's polling in the third place, sometimes second, sometimes first, is Chewy Garcia. And what is his stance on Chicago police officers?
Yeah, well, he would be no better than Lightfoot. He's would be terrible for our community. He hangs out, or there in the past, I don't know if he still is, hanging out with Latin Kings and gangbangers. But Lightfoot would be the worst. We already know that. And I think Chewy would be just as bad.
Hanging out with Latin Kings and gangbangers? Can you expound?
Well, there's some pictures out there. Yes, there's a picture out there. He marched with a couple Latin Kings. I think it all came up in the last time when he ran for against Rahm.
Right.
There's some pictures floating out there and an article on it, and identifying who the guys are that he's in the picture with.
What about his son, too? I mean, people were quick to pile on Paul Vallis' son, who is a police officer who was involved in a justified shooting, but yet Chewy Garcia's son, it's kind of crickets from the mainstream media about him.
Yeah, they brought that up before when Chewy ran, and they came down on one of the reporters, Anthony Ponce, I think it was. They beat up on him for bringing up family members, But at the end of the day, I mean, it sometimes can have give you an idea of who the candidate is as far as how he raises their kids. Like,
I want to go back to what you were talking about with patrol and the distribution of officers. So it seems so commonsensical, I think, particularly for laymen, to say, well, yeah, right, you've got all these resources, all these police resources devoted to things that are not frontline public safety chores, including the size of Lightfoot's detail. So what's the explanation for the deployment of limited resources, police officers, in this way? When people say, well, why don't we take the officers from here and officers from there and provide more officers on the beat and in neighborhoods, they say what?
The superintendent himself, July 20th, had a meeting at the 16th district, and that was actually brought up. We were so short in the district. We were hiring officers to come back on their days off. We were downing beat cars because we just didn't have the manpower. And we brought that up to him about the officers in units, and his response to us was, well, what if you were in that unit? Would you want to get dumped back to patrol? What am I supposed to tell those officers? And we're just dumbfounded because
that's your job. That's what you're supposed to tell them.
What am I? That's your job. Exactly. He's actually worried about offending people. Because it is, he has no connection here to Chicago. So he's got First Deputy Carter, and he's got all of these guys that are literally just promoting and putting their people in place, or putting them in units and taking care of their people, regardless of what's needed on the front lines. They just don't care. Their only priority is I got to get mine.
Right, protect my people don't want to be on the street, or they want these
Right.
sinecures, and so I'm just going to focus on taking care of them because that's
Right.
what they
And
want.
here,
I want
and
loyalists.
that's not to say, right, and I am by no means saying that all officers and units are doing a bad job and everything. Those support units are there for a reason, because they are needed. And there are a lot of officers out there that are doing a great job. And what I'm saying is those officers just need to be moved back to patrol for right now. And then if we have this hiring surge, we have a change in leadership, and all of a sudden it's, cool to be the police again, and we start to build up our manpower, then you can beef up those support units again. But right now, Patrol Division is starved for officers. These officers are exhausted. They are they're working their days off on a regular basis. So we've got to deal with the superintendent canceling days off as we go into the summer months right now. But if you're going through the winter months, there's officers that are just volunteering to work their days off just so we can man the beat cars.
Wow.
On a daily basis. So they're tired.
Right. What mayoral candidate do you think would best help the city of Chicago when it comes to the safety issue?
Honestly, I think there's two. The two best are definitely, in my opinion, Willie Wilson and Paul Vallis. The rest of the candidates are definitely all defund the police, or they've had a history of stepping up and attacking the police. Chewy Garcia himself. So when you remember the Bobby Rush popcorn scandal?
Oh yeah, we do.
Has that been
Mayor
solved?
Lightfoot.
Has the Oval Redenbacher been returned to Bobby Rush? That's what I want to know. Why the cover up?
I think Alderman Napolitano sent him a bunch of popcorn, so I
that's
think he's
nice.
good.
All right, good.
And half a pot of coffee, I hope.
And a half a pot of coffee, right. So Chewy was quick to jump on that bandwagon, that bus, I should say, as they drove it over those officers. But you had the administration at that time. You had the First Deputy Tony Riccio and Chief of Patrol Waller and Superintendent Brown. They got up there with Lightfoot and Brown and just laid these officers out, put their video up there, and it actually went national. And they presented a story. Riccio himself, he made it look like, when you hear him tell his little story there, that while he was out there on the front lines and rocks were being thrown at him and that these officers were making coffee, and while he was shoulder to shoulder with a commander who lost her helmet, these officers were over there popping popcorn and resting. When really what happened was that happened at Saturday, his story that he's telling. This video was from the officers at 1 a.m. Monday morning, right, after working this entire weekend and working 12-hour days. And when we were sent out there, we were left on corners with no bus, no access to restrooms, no food for the officers. It was a free-for-all. It was absolute chaos at that time. So we were told then as supervisors to, when we have an opportunity, when there's downtime and nothing going on, rest the officers as much as you can. We don't know when we're going to redeploy them, and they're going to be on their feet for another 5-10 hours. So that's what you do. That was actually an entire platoon there of 60 or 70 officers, but you only see about 13 in the video because the rest are out there on patrol, which at 1 a.m. Monday morning, it was all done. That weekend, nothing was going on. And those officers go in there and rest. Yes, that included eating some popcorn, drinking some coffee, and even sleeping. Yes, officers are allowed to sleep on duty when we're in a chaos situation like that to get some rest, so you keep your officers as fresh as possible.
You jumped on that. Okay.
You were police under 3 mayors, right? Daley, Rahm, and Lightfoot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, over the course of that couple of decades plus, what do you see? How do you reflect back now that you're retired on your career and where the city was when you started, and what happened in the subsequent couple of decades?
Well, I started in January of 1991, and it's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. Just how much has changed since then. The mayors, first of all, just going back to even Daley, while there would be, obviously some input and stuff as far as how the department was run, for the most part, he actually let the department run itself, the officers run itself. And then as time went on, and now you've got a micromanager in Mayor Lightfoot. But so much has changed. Social media the cameras and everything everywhere. The way that the perception of how officers are supposed to be doing their job. I mean, sometimes policing doesn't look good. Sometimes we have to use force. I think they're going after officers in Oak Lawn right now because they were, punching this, poor young teen that had a gun.
Yeah, gun in his bag. I know.
And it had a gun in his bag. So that's just an example of just how dramatically it's changed. Everybody now is an expert on law enforcement, and there's just hyper focus on what the officers are doing and how they do their job. And that's made it extremely difficult for officers to do their job.
Well, what about
when you're constantly being second guessed?
And the city itself, because, I mean, we've had murder spikes under all of the mayors. We've had endemic violent crime in the South and West Side particularly, and it's spread sometimes to other neighborhoods under all of the mayors. So what's different now versus a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago in the city?
So the one thing that Daley and Rahm knew is and it's not about race. It's everybody wants to make everything about race. It's about containing the violence. You want to do what you can to obviously prevent crime, but you have to contain it because at the same time we have to pay our bills here. Our tax base is downtown Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot let that go.
Yep.
It's a free for all down there. The crime has just spread throughout the city because between her and Kim Foxx, it goes unchecked. There's no accountability. But for sure, the big difference with Lori Lightfoot is that she has allowed crime to spread everywhere. And I know some people say, well, what about crime in those neighborhoods? Absolutely. And there's a lot more than you can't police your way sometimes out of the crime problems in some of those neighborhoods. There's societal issues that have to be dealt with. In addition to that, you have to work with those communities. But to let it just the way it's gone. I mean, we've got 12-year-olds doing carjackings on the North Shore. They're everywhere, and it's just going unchecked, and that's the thing that I think I noticed big time.
You mentioned Kim Foxx. What about the deterioration? I'm suggesting that's what's occurred. The deterioration of the relationship between police and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office over that time period, too, from, Jack O'Malley to Dick Devine to even Anita Alvarez to present.
Well, there is no relationship with the police and Kim Foxx, for sure. There are definitely a lot of state's attorneys that have been there a long time, so they're from the old regime, and they want to work with law enforcement. They want to work with the officers. So there's still a lot of good state's attorneys there, but more times than not, their hands are tied, and the edict comes down from Kim Foxx of what they can and can't do, and it's let them go, basically. I guess she's called, let them go, Kim Foxx, because she doesn't want them prosecuting. It appears as though she doesn't want them prosecuting anybody.
John Garrido, former Chicago Police Lieutenant in the 16th District, 30 years on the job. Also president, along with his wife. They run the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation, GarridoStrayRescue.org. John, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good talking to you guys.
Thank you. And
Bye-bye.
he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
They even had the unmitigated gall to go and make coffee for themselves and to pop popcorn, my popcorn, in my microwave.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer.